Hello, I'm Frank Hannaway, and welcome to Big Journey, Small Steps, the channel where I talk about my journey towards self-realization and the small steps I'm taking to get there, aided by my teacher, Eknath Ishwaran. Well, today is part 2 of the Gita and Me, where I'm going to be talking a little bit about how the Bhagavad Gita has had an enormous impact on my life. And so I said last week I was going to be talking about, I hate to say this is my favorite verse, because I have a lot of favorite verses, but this is a really significant and really important collection of verses. It's the last 12 verses of chapter 2, and I gave the link last week for where you could download it for free. I'll put that link at the bottom again. And also, if you want to buy the Gita, where you can get it either through Blue Mountain or through Amazon. So these last 12 verses of the second chapter of the Gita were Gandhiji's very favorite verses, and he spent a lot of time meditating on them. And Ishwaran actually, as a young man, saw Gandhi meditating on those verses. He had someone read them, and he went into a calm state. And Ishwaran said you could actually see a change in Gandhi, in his strength and his personal radiance, as he listened to these verses. So they're kind of important. So here's the gist of it, if you haven't read them yet. So Arjuna, who is the warrior whom Krishna is charioteer for in this great battle between kings, Arjuna asks Krishna, how do you know if somebody lives in wisdom? How do you know if somebody's in the unified state? How do they talk? How do they sit? How do they move? What do they do? How would I know if somebody had reached this state? And Krishna goes on to outline what a person like that would be like. And immediately he points out, the very first thing he says is, they see themselves in all and all in them. So in other words, they realize their unity with all other beings, and they don't look at themselves as separate. And as you go through it, there are more wonderful guidelines about what to do, and most of it is about subduing your senses and becoming master of your senses rather than having your senses be master of you, which is really interesting. And then in the very last verses, he says, they are forever free who have broken out of the ego cage of I and mine to be united with the Lord of love. This is the supreme state. Attain to this and pass from death to immortality. And that's sort of the encapsulation of the whole Gita, really, so that you quit thinking about yourself as a separate entity from others, and you focus on your connectedness. And in doing that, it's I don't want to say it, in my limited understanding of what these verses mean at this point in my life, when you understand the connectedness, you have an experience of God. So anyway, the part that I struggle with in these 12 verses, and this week especially, I've been using them for meditation because I wanted to be prepared for this video. So I thought, well, a good way to do that is by meditating on these verses. And I find them very hard to push into my unconscious because my mind is really resistant. And there's this one part that says, when you keep thinking about sense objects, attachment comes. Attachment breeds desire, the lust of possession that when thwarted burns to anger. And he goes on to say, the people that are free are the people who live in the world without either attachment or aversion to things. That they're free from strong likes and dislikes. And it scares the stew out of me because it's one of the hardest things, and one of for myself, my intellectual self, I guess that my unspoken reality was that I thought that my thoughts, that I was my thoughts, that my thoughts make up who I am, but the Gita tells us that's not true. So that's very startling. And I have about 60 years of undoing to get past that idea. So when I first started on these verses, at the end of this little section was always the place I really totally lost my concentration. And I don't do that anymore, but I really do find my mind is resistant to these verses. And so anyway, the links below, I highly recommend them. You know, this is a place like, the word awesome that's so overused. These verses are awesome because when they start to dawn on you, when it starts to dawn on you what they say and what they mean, you are struck with awe. Well, that's all I'm going to say about this part of the Gita this week. I'm actually getting away for a few days to Atlanta. I have some friends coming to stay with my mother, and I'm leaving on Thursday, which when this comes out will be tomorrow, and I'm coming back the following Monday. There certainly will be a video next week. I might even make it while I'm in Atlanta. And I'm going to see my friend Peggy and my friend David. And anyway, see you next week. Thanks for taking this time with me. Summer's coming and our young folk will be freer than they have been, which is always nice. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you peace and joy.